Hey, Caleb. How you doing? Caleb, good to see you. What brings you over here?
Well, my mom and dad sent me over here to show you my backpack for the Little Bear Outdoor Adventure Camp.
Really?
Colorado. Yeah.
That is good. You're going to go to the Little Bear Outdoor Adventure Camp. Can I look to see what's in the backpack, make sure everything is okay?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad your mom and dad brought you over here and wanted you to show me, because this is very important. Here, hold the pack. I want to peek in there and see what's in there. Ready?
All right.
You got it all packed up?
I didn't have all that much time.
Oh, Caleb, I can't believe it.
What?
You sure need some help. I'm glad you came over to ask me. I can't believe, look at a can of pop. By the way, you don't want to drink caffeine in high altitude because it's really unhealthy for you, because your body has to adjust to high altitude, so the pop's got to go. Let's see. Oh, this takes so much room in a backpack. You certainly don't want to take a survival pack with you with a Frisbee in it, because you don't need Frisbees to survive, so that's got to go. Let's see what else we got. Oh, a tennis ball. Where's the tennis racket? Now listen, Caleb. We're going to be building a survival pack. So this has got to be more than just a pack. It's a survival pack, so the tennis ball's got to go. This is kind of useful, but it's so heavy. Feel how heavy this. This is a catalog on guns, knives. I mean, I can see why you'd want to bring it, the shoes and stuff, but just to pass time. But if you're in a survival situation, you're not going to sit around looking at a catalog about what kind of gun to buy. So that's got to go. Now I see something really good in here. This is probably the smartest thing you brought.
Oh yeah. My granola bar and candy bar.
Yeah, what kind of candy bar is that?
That's a Kit Kat.
Now the problem with this, what happens in the heat?
It melts.
So I'm gonna keep this in myself. Now, now the granola bar is pretty good. You know what the granola bar is good? Because it's granola and it has some benefit for strength. So hey, I can tell you what we'll do. I'm gonna tell you a story about why survival is so important and why putting a survival pack is so important. And so let's go over to my swing. I'll spend a few minutes with you, and then I'm going to show you how to build your own pack. So let's take this with us. Come on.
All right.
Now, hey, pal. Good boy. I'm going to tell you a story. There's even a dog in this story, and all boys like dog stories. But it's more than just a dog. I'm going to call them the Johnson family. True story. They went on vacation, they went to Colorado, and they made a very serious mistake. He didn't have a survival pack. The only thing is they did have a pack, but there was foolish things in there. They had a magazine, a Frisbee, and a bottle of wine. First of all, alcohol isn't wise. And secondly, to take alcohol in that high altitude is absolutely perilous. So Little Bear doesn't drink, and I encourage you not to drink. And alcohol is very, very serious. So he made mistakes from the get-go. As they went up, they got lost. And then the weather changes. Sometimes you're in the valley and it could be like 86, but when you come up to higher altitudes, you can end up in a weather change pattern within about 4 or 5 hours, and it could drop 30 degrees. And sometimes hiking takes a lot longer than you think. And he was trying to get up to this real high peak. On the way down, a couple of hikers were coming down. They go, "Hey, how you doing?" They started chatting, and they said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going up to the peak." And the man said, "I would not go up there if I were you. It looks like there's a storm coming." And they looked around and goes, "A storm? I don't see a storm." And foolishly, he didn't take the advice of those men. They continued up, and you know what happened? They never found him. And the only one that survived of the entire family was their pet dog.
If you should ever find yourself lost in the wilderness, be sure to remember the 4 rules of survival. Number 1, admit that you're lost and you need help by humbling yourself. Number 2, stop, pray, and ask God to help you. Number 3, build a campfire to stay warm. And number 4, make a shelter.
This next part I want to tell you about how to build your survival pack right here in our shelter. And I'm going to tell you why a shelter is so important. Now, first thing I want to show you, I brought my survival pack, and I'm going to transfer some of my things from my pack to your pack. But the first thing I want to take out is something very basic that you should have in every survival pack. What do you think this is?
A trash bag.
And look it. Very simple, very inexpensive. You want to put this down. Since it rained last night and this shelter is damp, let's sit on the survival bag.
Okay.
Get comfortable there for a few minutes. And you see what happens, Caleb, is your body temperature, God created us to be at a certain temperature, like 98 point something, whatever. Anything below that body temperature, you can freeze to death. So even when it's 70 degrees, 75 degrees, if you're in exposed conditions like wet and you're below your body temperature, you can start getting hypothermia. And a ground cloth keeps the heat in your body from being zapped out of you. If you sit on something colder than your body, what do you think happens to your body heat?
Well, you lose it, right?
You lose it.
You
So
lose it.
in other words, if the log is 50 and your body is 90, that 50 will start sapping your 90 and bring your temperature down, which is on the way to hypothermia. So a simple little plastic ground cloth is great for shelter. We're going to talk about shelters, but before we talk about shelters, I got to go for a few things here. Now, Little Bear, I went back into the house and brought my coat because people are used to seeing Little Bear with, like, furry things on, and they go, oh, that's Little Bear with his furry things on. I don't walk around all the time with furry things, and I certainly don't walk around when I go into the woods with furry things on, like furry hats and leather coats. Can you give me any idea of why you think it'd be foolish to be walking around in the woods with furry hats and leather coats?
Because it absorbs moisture,
No. Well, leather's not good for insulation, and we'll talk about clothes in a little while. The main thing is when you're in the woods, people have guns. What do you think they're doing?
hunting.
Right. So what happens if you're walking through the woods and you get this furry thing going like this through the woods? What do you think somebody would do? Shoot that thing like a coyote, shoot it. And they don't care if it's 6 feet in the air, they're trigger happy. These are unexperienced hunters. So I don't go anywhere in the woods wearing anything furry. So I'm very cautious taking leather coats, things like that, into the woods and hiking around. It looks cool, it makes you feel like you're Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett, but it's not a real wise thing. And so that's one thing I just wanted to do in passing, because so many children don't know that, or younger people. Now, when you are in a situation like this man that got lost, he broke one of the basic rules. He wasn't prepared, right? He didn't have his pack. He didn't have the proper things in his pack. He had foolish things in his pack. And he wasn't prepared with some very essentials. Now, the first thing you want to do is when you're lost, as I mentioned earlier, you want to admit you're lost. So you got to be humble and go, remember those guys that were coming down the mountain? They said, Mr. Johnson, I think that you shouldn't go any further. He should have admitted, I'm lost. Why don't you help me walk down the trail to where my motorhome is? But his pride said, no, I don't need to do that. I won't get lost. Now, had he even been lost, and let's assume that his pride brought him to the next point, had he had the proper things in a survival pack, that would have saved him. So I'm going to open my pack, open your pack, and I'm going to transfer some things that are very important here. First thing I want to give you is a rule of thumb. This is an SAS guide. It's a survival guide put out by the military in Britain, and it's got every single thing that you can imagine. A wild edible, what to eat, how to make traps, how to start fires, how to build shelters, anything you can imagine. In the back it's got color pictures on what is edible, poisonous snakes and things like that. This is an essential. So Caleb, before you go to the Little Bear Outdoor Adventure Camp in Horn Creek, Colorado, I would definitely study your survival guide, because it's called a rule of thumb. Make this your rule of thumb. It's a word to the wise. And so this has everything that you'll ever want to know. It's just great. So keep one of these in your survival pack. Very essential. And also something else. When you're lost or you're scared and you're all by yourself, say you're not with your dad and your mom and you went off for a little hike, sometimes just having a book in your hand gives you a little bit of sense of security, and you don't panic. Panic's the worst thing you can do, is panicking. And so having a guide there, saying, now, I got my guide, what should I do? So you want to carry your guide, study your guide, so put that in there. Another thing, one of the most important things you want to have is a source of fire. So you can have matches in a container, and this is, why do you think it's in this container?
It's waterproof.
Waterproof. So you want to have waterproof matches, or a lighter. A lighter, those kind of lighters where you flick the thing. A lighter is very inexpensive. The problem with a lighter is if the plastic container gets broken, what spills out of it?
The fuel.
And then you don't have a light. So you want to have backup sources. So lighter or matches. In this particular one, I'm smart. I even have a little chili powder. You know why I have chili powder?
No.
Because anything you eat in the wild, you better put chili on it, because it hides the terrible taste. Now, this is a little fire sticks. See? And these fire sticks are they're already impregnated with chemical that will help them light fast. Because like yesterday it rained. What do you think's wrong with all the wood around here?
It's moist.
Moist. So you want to, first thing you want to do in a survival situation is you want to get yourself warm. So fire is very essential. Now there are three basic elements to survive, and the most important thing to remember is this: keep your body warmth in, keep your temperature maintained. So if you're starting to get cold, the beginnings of hypothermia, and some of the signs are uncontrollable shaking. Have you ever seen, or have you been in a position where your teeth are chattering? It's so cold you're going to...
Yes, I have.
And you're shaking. Well, that's a very important sign to recognize I am getting hypothermia. Don't say, I'm going to make it to the car. I'm going to make it to my dad's tent. I know he's out there somewhere, and it's going to get dark, and I got to go. And you start panicking, and you run, and you run, and you panic. Stop. Take a breath. Pray. Ask the Lord to help you. Lord, I believe I'm lost. I need to start a fire. I'm getting cold. Before you start going like this, where you can't start the fire, get your fire kit out. And in your survival pack, you want to carry something that will have an ability, if the ground is wet or full of snow, to start your fire with. So put that in there. That's very, very important. So you want to get your fire immediately. Little Bear makes available through the Mantle Ministries not only that survival SAS guide, so if people want to write, they can order one or go on the internet and order one, but I carry a one-handed match blaster. This is so great. Sometimes in certain situations you've hurt your arm and you may not have two hands. To do a match, it takes two hands. Oftentimes the lighter can work with one finger because you just go like this, but this match blaster is pretty cool. You take the match blaster like this. For your survival guide, you can put your match blaster, you can take your lint. This is dryer lint from a mom's dryer at home. Then you just take your finger, and this is magnesium, and underneath it is a piece of steel, and what it does is it shaves off the magnesium, and at the same time it lets that hot magnesium fall on the dryer cloth. So I want you to go down here and just go down. Let me show you how you do it, like that. See, and so I'll put that out so you can try it. Now you try that. Push your thumb down on there.
Okay.
That's it. Good. Keep doing it. Let's go to a heart. There you go. You got it. Now that fire is a very essential. With fire, well, you know what fire does? What fire does is it gives you a sense of peace. Once you have some peace of mind, you're starting to warm up, you're calming down, your body temperature is rising, and your hypothermia is going, then you go, whew. Now, if it's pitch dark and it's late at night, by the time you got your fire started, just stay by the fire that night and gather as much wood around you as possible. So besides your dryer lint, you can go ahead and take some of those little wooden sticks that we have, and you can do that. Or once the fire starts getting a little brighter, gather around some wood. Even if the wood is damp, once you've got some embers there, that wood will dry out and heat. Now don't take huge logs and set logs on there, because what does it do to the fire?
It'll smolder it.
Smolder it out. So do little at a time, be patient and build your fire. You have to know this. With basic survival things in your survival pack, your chances of survival are very good. So don't say, I'm going to die out here. Go, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. I'm going to have a little fire, and in a little while I'm going to be rescued, and this is going to be an experience I'm going to be able to tell my grandchildren someday. So put this in your kit. They're very, very essential. Now, once your fire is established and your body temperature is getting back to normal, and you feel fairly confident, and you have some light left, what do you think is the next important thing to do?
Food or shelter?
Okay, most people think it's going to be food. But you see, you can live, do you know how long you can live without food?
Like 2 or 3 days, or more than that.
You can live usually remember Moses fasted and prayed for 40 days, and Jesus in the wilderness was 40 days without food. You can go, by God's grace, 2 weeks, 3 weeks without food, because your body is absorbing its food that's in there. Your stomach's like a big container, and it's just eating the food that's been in there, and you can survive. However, shelter is extremely important. The most important things you want to remember is you can live about 3 hours in the outdoor weather without shelter. That's called exposure. It produces hypothermia. 3 hours, that's all you have. So if you're lost, you have to say to yourself, I better build a shelter within 3 hours. You can go, how many days do you think you can go without water? Just take a guess.
Okay, maybe 4 days?
3 days.
Okay.
Usually on the average, 3 days without water. So 3 days without water. So the first thing is you want to do your shelter. The second thing is you probably want to find a water source. And then you can live like 2 to 3 weeks without food. So the first thing you want to do is get yourself warm. Then build your shelter. Now if it's daylight and you've got shelter around, material around, build your shelter. You can have some real basics. What do you think this is?
A blanket.
Yeah, what do you call them? Do you know what kind? What
An emergency blanket.
Emergency blanket. Another word for them would be space blankets. You know where I got this?
Where?
Walmart.
Huh.
Walmart, most Academy Sporting Goods. So you open this up. It's quite large. You open this thing up, and what do you want to do with this? What would you do with this?
Spread it around your body.
Yes. Why?
To keep warm.
To keep warm. Put body heat. To keep your what? Your body heat in.
Yes.
So you would actually cover yourself, probably from the back. You would cover yourself up, and if it starts raining, it's keeping you dry, and the body heat is going against the blanket and radiating your container. Meanwhile, you have a small fire here. Don't build a humongous fire, but if you have a small fire, where's the heat going? Into the blanket, preserving you, and you can actually, with snow falling on the ground, and this simple, you know how much this was? This is like $2. This alone could save you. You know that man, Mr. Johnson, that went in the woods, had he had a space blanket for all of his family for $1.95 or whatever, he would have saved his family's life. Forget the dog. The dog's got the fur. He would have had enough to save his family. So very important. So this is a kind of a shelter. That's a very important thing. And since we mentioned food, I'll show you some real beginnings. A parachute cord. We're going to show you how to do snares. Some families take, it depends how fancy you want your survival pack to be, it's MREs, emergency rations, ready to eat. And you get this ration, you can buy them in most Army surplus stores, and you can cook it. It's probably not the best food you ever ate in your life. It'll make your mom's cooking really good compared to this thing, but it will save your life. So you want to have maybe some, like remember that granola bar you had? That's good. Granola bar is good. Some food source you can take in your pack. Now you have to say to yourself, my hike's going to be about 6 hours. So what can I take on that hike that's not too heavy, that will last me for the hike, and if I have to survive on some food, it'll get me over. I won't eat high on the hog, but I can eat a little bit at a time to get me so the search and rescue team can find me. So these are some of the basics that you want to get, and we're going to continue to build our pack. But what I want to do right now that's going to be really neat is I want to take you to the Guadalupe River, and we're going to talk about water and what water can do for you when you're near a source of water. So let's go down to the river. A general rule of thumb is you can last 3 days without water. And talking about generals, back in the military, the generals taught their soldiers to always carry their water with them. They used a wooden barrel just like this, and sometimes the wooden barrel would leak, but then the wood would swell up. The Cooper designed it in such a way with such wood that it would stop its leaking eventually in due time. And so it was very serviceable. Of course, later on as time went on, by 1898 they came up with this canteen. The word teen or tin was because it was made out of metal. Didn't change much because when I was a Boy Scout in about 1962, I remember having a canteen just like this. Of course, the thing now is plastic. But then in World War I, they not only used tin, but they came up with a canvas bag, and they would use this to feed their horses. Many of the troops had horses, and they'd go down to a stream, or even during the Spanish-American War, and they would fill up down there by the stream and feed their horses, or take that back to wash their face. A lot of creative things you can do. You can take your helmet off, and the helmet's constructed in such a way that the lower portion is called the pot. And you can take your helmet down and then use the pot, and you can go down there to the stream, wash your face with that pot, and keep yourself clean, wash your hands, dump that out. So it was very practical. The soldiers really learned a lot about water, survival, and the military is real good at this. The standard issue GI was this canteen. It was used in World War II, it was used in Korea, and the Vietnam War. It really hasn't changed much, very standard issue. What's really unique about this, I'll let you take a peek in there, is it has a pot. And you could use that pot to boil water. You see, water is not safe in all conditions. Be careful for water that's near the ocean. Even though it's inland a little bit, it could be brackish. Brackish means it has a slight salt taste to it. A little salt taste, salt in your water will dehydrate you and do you much harm. And so soldiers oftentimes had to resort to use their pot to boil the water in, to boil out the impurities. Now, oftentimes when you're dehydrated and you're thinking about water, you'll run down and you'll drink so much water that it can make you sick. In fact, if you haven't been drinking regularly and then you go down and drink a lot of water, that much water could eventually kill you. So be very, very careful to overtake water in a dehydrated situation. Drink slowly, and then don't drink just right out of the stream. What we have now, and what I want to suggest you do, is go to a local sporting goods store and buy some portable water pills. It's very inexpensive. You drop in the water, it kills the amoebas, because upstream there could be a dead animal, and that animal is leaching out impurities into that water, and if you drink that water, it can make you very deathly sick. And so I would highly recommend this. Very inexpensive. Put this in your survival pack, and that's just another one of those things that you can learn to survive a little bit better in the wilderness. I'm here to show you some gadgets. I call this the gadget part of your survival pack. Let me tell you, though, they're building a survival pack. Not everything here is essential, but some things are important. And so it's up to you to decide what you want in your pack, determining how far you're going, what the conditions are that will determine what you save. So some of the things, let me go over them very quickly. Obviously, we talked a little bit about parachute cord. One thing I like about parachute cord, Caleb, you see here, it's got, what are these? These are strands, and they're nylon. And every strand is very, very strong. So there's all the strands together, like the scripture in Ecclesiastes, a cord of three is not easily broken. When you put those strands together, forms a shield around with nylon. It forms a very strong tensile strength. However, if you're in a desperate situation, you could take your pocket knife, you can cut open the shroud, the nylon shroud, and unstrand the strand and use it for snares, building snares, for tying. And so parachute cord is essential. You, of course, can carry wire. These are optionals. Instead of taking your parachute cord apart, use some brass wire. Brass wire or copper wire is very flexible, very moldable. So remember the food part of it. You can get some food. Let's say that you're not going to be rescued immediately and you are getting hungry. The snare is the way to go to build your traps, and we'll talk about that in another episode. So you can see here I have various cords, various things that I can use, and it's up to you to decide how much of it you want to take and how much not. Now this is kind of crazy. People go, well, Little Bear, why in the world would you take a cell phone? Well, because towers are being put up hither and yonder, it's not unusual that you might have a tower in a location where you have cell reception. So obviously if you're lost, Mommy, I'm lost, help, send rescue, here I am. Don't ask me where I am, but I'm out somewhere in the woods and I'm so glad I'm talking to you. And so you've got the cell. If the cell doesn't work, at least you've tried. You know, again, your pack can get very heavy if you bring walkie-talkies. Walkie-talkies are an advantage. If your dad went out one way and you went another way, to save his battery, he can talk every 10 or 15 minutes. Caleb, can you hear me? 10 minutes later, Caleb, can you hear me? 20 minutes later, Caleb, can you hear me? Yes, Dad, where are you? And then you can signal each other. So don't rule this out, but again, consider, because of the weight, do you want to take this? GPS, to me, the GPS is the most important item that I like in my survival pack. Remember the Johnson family that went up in Colorado? Had they had a GPS, the story would have been far written different. They would have got right back to the motorhome, because it's got a little man, he walks like this, and then he kind of goes through the woods, and you follow, it's called a breadcrumb trail. You can actually follow your trail all the way back in the pitch dark with a flashlight shining on your GPS. You can find your way right back. It's fairly expensive. You're looking between $150 up to $350, depending on the brand and the bells and whistles that your GPS offers. So I would highly recommend a GPS. In fact, to be honest with you, if you're going to do some serious hiking, you're foolish not buying a GPS, because it tells you where you've been, how you've been. It'll mark the trail. It'll help you to remember next year if you want to go back on the same hike. It'll store those hikes so that in future times you can go back and refer to that GPS. The old-fashioned way is one of these. What's this called?
A compass.
A topographical map of the area that you're going to go in, knowing the terrain. A compass will help orientate you. Basically, the GPS has replaced the compass, but there's nothing wrong with learning compass skills, and maybe someday we'll do a segment on how to use a compass, because it's a lost art, but it's a very unique art that I really like. Of course, GPS is only as good as the what?
Batteries.
Believe it or not, the GPS goes very quickly. The battery power goes fast. So you don't want to be lost, heading your way back, following your GPS, and having it screen blank out on you because you didn't have batteries. I keep talking about weight. everything you have here is weight orientated. So you don't want your pack so heavy that it's miserable and your hike becomes miserable because your pack is so heavy because you have so many things. So again, you use those discretions. But Little Bear definitely would have his GPS. I would have extra batteries because that to me is very, very essential. Now, this part, boys just love. You go, well, Little Bear, feel how heavy that is. That is something you're going to have to think about. But I kind of like a shovel. I would have to consider what terrain I'm in, where I'm going. The thing about a shovel is tight. You can pack it, fold it, turn the buckle on it, turnbuckle, and make it tight. You can dig for shelters in the desert, in the mountains, in the woodlands, in the snow. Very practical. What's this?
It looks like serration.
Feel that. Not real sharp, but in an emergency, I suppose you could cut. You could use it for whacking, chopping, so it's got some advantages. So make sure you think through whether you want a shovel or not. I like the idea of a shovel. Now, the last things I want to talk about real briefly here is some very practical tools. These are very important. Simple things like knife, fork, spoon, all in one little kit. Most Army surpluses have something like this. Boys really like this. The Boy Scouts make a knife-spoon combination like that. What's that? A knife for cutting. What do you call this part of the knife when you have this on there?
A lock blade, is that right?
Lock blade, right. Why is that important?
So it won't fold up on your finger.
Exactly.
Fingers or whatever.
Exactly. Now show them how to tell whether a knife is sharp or not. What's a safe way to do?
Across.
Across instead of what? Instead of down. So many young people go, oh, is this sharp, Little Bear? And they go down the blade, cut their finger. I've actually had young people grab my knife and cut their finger going down the blade without going across. So you always want to, for those of you that are younger, you want to make sure you go across the top. Let me also say this for safety reasons. Young people, if you're watching, make sure you check with your parents that it's okay for you to have a knife, because there's an age limitation and level that I think is safe for young people to handle life. Because when you're in the wilderness, if you cut yourself, remember hypothermia and getting or dehydration, those combinations, as well as being cut and injured, are deteriorating facts that affect your chances of survival. So you want to make sure that you don't infection or just loss of blood.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that. We'll talk more about that when we get into first aid. Knives come in all shapes and sizes. Little one. And in Little Bear's Outdoor Adventure gutting video, I talk about this knife and why this little hook is on there. What do you have there, Caleb?
This is a bigger one right here.
Okay.
It's got a neat little storing.
What can you put in
hollow,
there?
it's a hollow.
What are some of the things you could put in there?
Oh, I don't know. Well, there's a compass right here
cool?
Under the top.
So instead of having such a big thing like that, what do you think would be smart to put in that handle?
Matches.
Very
That's
good. Matches. Okay. Can you think of something else?
A small pocket knife.
Small pocket knife or a small razor blade?
Mm-hmm.
How about fish what?
Fishing lures.
Lure
and the string.
And wire.
Yes.
Or fishing hook or some snare wire. There's a lot of little things that you can put in a knife like this. Look at this handle. This is again your option to determine what type of knife that you want to buy. The knives are far reaching. There's all kinds of knives that are available. This one has sharp edge for skinning or chopping wood. So you can get various sizes, shapes, and purposes for knives. Knives are like tools, and you have to analyze the tool that you want. You can go to your very famous type of Swiss Army knife with various blades. It's got, this little pouch has a flashlight. We'll talk about signal and distress things in a little while. We've got your multi-tool. Some people like a multi-tool. You got pliers and various tools there that are useful. Again, it's heavy. Think it through. What you want to take is your choice. This is a practical knife. This is called a Bushman knife. The Bushman, Caleb, is, of course, you probably know about this. You can put your stick in there. You can secure your stick. You can use it for a spear, for an animal, for stabbing if you have to, for chopping. So it's some people like a Bushman. This one has the top on the end, which this one doesn't. It's open for the spear that you want to make. So again, personal matter, personal choice. Be very careful when you slip knives in a sheath, because sometimes if you're not real careful, you can slip your knife out of your sheath and you can cut your finger. So be very, very careful, especially on a sharp knife like the Bushman. This is very practical. If in some event you're going to have to be lost longer than you're anticipating, don't panic. With a tool like this, you can build yourself a little shelter more effectively by sawing. Swiss Family Robinson, Robinson Crusoe, they would have loved a saw like this. Unfortunately, they didn't have it, but the saw is not heavy. Feel that?
Yes.
But the
yes,
saw is long and awkward. So what they've done is they've invented kits like this, survival kits that you can purchase. And if you're interested in a survival kit like this, just let me know, and I can give you resources on where through Mantle Ministries to get survival kits like this. This is a chain, just like a chainsaw, and you can go to a tree. Pretend this is a branch. I can take the saw, hold it tight, and I can saw like this, just like a chainsaw, and I can saw this twig off to help me build my shelter. And look at that, it folds up nice and neat, goes inside a little survival pack kit. So those are some of the options and under gadgets that you can do to build your kit, and you can make a choice that you can put in your own personal kit, and then go out in the woods and enjoy yourself a little bit more comfortably, knowing that in emergencies you'll be able to get by because you are wise and not foolish. That's good. That's good kindling. Every good woodsman has an axe, and he carries his axe with him on a sheath or with a knife, but it's optional equipment. Some people don't want to carry an axe, but I like the axe because if you're going to have to build an emergency shelter, it's probably your best tool. Every mountain man carried his tomahawk with him, and it was very good. In the case, hopefully, God forbid it never happens, but if you do get hurt, whenever you have a blade or whenever you're in the wilderness, there's a chance of tripping, stepping on something, getting bit by something, getting stinging nettles, cutting yourself, whole multitude of things. So therefore, very inexpensively, you can buy an emergency first aid kit, and you can put that in there. Look how light that is. See?
Wow.
Open it up. I'll show you a couple things you want to add to it. Pull those blue pills out. This is Benadryl. You can get it right across the counter. It's like an allergy. It's an allergy pill. Not only do people get allergies sometimes when you're in the wilderness, but if you get a bee sting or spider bite or some kind of a itchy reaction, Benadryl really knocks it out very quickly. So I add that to my first aid kit. Another thing I add to my first aid kit is I add extra aspirins, because most first aid kits don't come with aspirins, and aspirins is very good for high fever and take the edge off if you have it. Again, all these things make sure, since you're young, that you get your parents' approval. So we'll add that there and have one on your own. Some people carry a wire splint. They can splint up like a spring, or if you're in an emergency situation, you can take two boards, and this book here, your SAS guide, gives you some really practical things on how to splint, how to do first aid in a survival situation. So that's it. We're really adding a lot to your pack, and I think it's going to really help you a lot in the wilderness. And I just pray that you never get hurt when you're in the wilderness, but in case you do, you've got some resource for you there in your first aid kit. Good.
All right, thank you.
Fire is a very great distress signal. At night, it'll be seen a long way off, and I'm going to show you some other things besides a fire for distress signal. And they're in my pack, so when you build your pack, you're going to build it with some of these things. Now what you want to do here is you're going to have a few obvious things. You want to make sure your pack has a flashlight so that you can shine that. Now this is a pretty heavy one. You might get yourself a little pen light, a little smaller one, so stick that in your pack. I'll give that to you. And then you want to have a flare. A flare is pretty neat. This is a car flare, and just roadside flare. You take off the lid, pull off the top, and right here you've got a black starter with that strikes. Feel how that rough is. It's almost like striking a match, and you strike that really hard, and it'll flare. And if you see a plane coming, you want to just circle that in the air and hopefully get their attention. So that's a great thing and very inexpensive to get a flare, and you can keep that in your pack. And hopefully you'll never have to use it, but that's good to have. Put that in your pack there. Now, here's beyond the flashlight, this is a flashlight that is got a very high intensity lamp that shines for a long way. This will go 2 miles. And then you've got the red, and so you've got the combination. You could go like this. See that plane? You shake that plane, and we might get rescued. Now, obviously, yelling help is for your own benefit. Nobody's going to hear you, so since they're not going to hear you, You blow that. See what happens. But blow hard. Very good. 3 times. Distress calls. And SOS on the ground. Big letters. SOS on the daytime. They can see that. So you want SOS, 3 blasts. If you have your rifle with your shotgun, say you're out hunting and you got left out, you can take your rifle, crack it open, and put a shotgun shell in there and blast a shotgun shell. 3 blasts, distress call. 3 whistles, distress call. I don't particularly like the shotgun to use up my shells because I want to use. What do you think you could do that for?
It can be used for ammunition, right?
Well, what would you do?
You wouldn't want to use up your
No,
ammunition.
don't use up any. What's more important to you do with it?
Is to save it for when you go hunting.
Go hunting, because if you're out here more than a couple of days, you're going to start getting hungry. So I would save my ammunition, and then I would just use the whistle, the distress call. By the way, those are sergeant's whistles that you blew. That's Mantle Ministry sells them, and they're great because they're cheap. Not like this. This costs money. That little distress whistle only is $6. This is about $15. And you buy these canisters. You stick the canister on the little blue horn, and you can buy these at marine boat shops, wherever they sell boating equipment, even big sporting goods stores. I think I got this at Academy Sporting Goods. Why don't you blast that 3 times, see what happens. Okay. 3 blasts, what's it mean again?
SOS.
SOS, distress.
All right.
Okay, Caleb, this is an expense, but I think it's well worth it. It's about $5. You can get them in the same shops where you get your air blasters. They're called flares. And the way this is made, it's convenient. It's not like the military with a large hole. This won't burn quite as long, but you pull out the back and you extend the front, and that makes it like a cartridge, like a gun barrel. Now you got the gun barrel right there. Then you just pull that down and it'll shoot off. And you want to do this one at night. This is only practical at night, not during the day.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Whoa.
Now see, it goes up about 200 feet. Wow. Flares for a while. A larger one would burn longer, but that's good enough. A plane going by in a distance that you're seeing will catch wind of that. They'll come in the air. They'll see your campfire. They'll flip their wings back and forth, and it'll let them know that they see you, and you'll be very encouraged. So I'm going to give this to you. Put that in your pack. Okay. Now, the mirror is the last thing I want to show you. The mirror is good in the daytime. The flare is good at night. The mirror is good in the day. Very inexpensive. The way the mirror works is you line up you line up towards the sun, and you look for a log or a rock. See how it's there, and see that little star there?
Yes, sir.
And then you move it up, and you flash it towards the plane, and you flash it like 1, 2, 3. Flash it. See, 1, 2, 3. And then the plane will dip its wings, just like the flare getting close, it'll dip its wings. Of course, at night you may not see it dip its wings, but usually what they'll do at night is they'll circle. But the plane in the daytime will flip its wings, and it'll let you know that we see you and that you're safe. So the mirror, I'll give that to you, and you can put that in your pack. And that concludes the portion on the distress signals.
Alrighty.
Caleb, I want to leave you with one last, most important gift that I can give you for your survival pack, and that's God's holy word, the Bible. Basic instruction before leaving earth is what the Bible stands for. And Jesus came on a search and rescue mission for us, to redeem us from the pit of hell. He saved us by His blood, and this is the greatest gift that I can give to you. And remember, once we become Christians, we become search and rescuers, to go out and seek and save the lost, is what the Scripture says. And so I want to leave this so when you're in a situation, if you ever have to, you can use God's Word to bless you and comfort you in a survival situation. I hope this has been very helpful.
Well, yes, thank you, Little Bear. I've learned a lot.
Good. And I trust that you viewing and watching have learned a lot, that you will have the best survival backpack with your own Bible in there that anybody in the whole neighborhood will have. God bless you, and Little Bear will see you here, there, or in the air.